Chapter 2. The Taste of Ice Cream. For some reason, just now, sitting in this German apartment where everything is correct, clean, and functional, Arkadiy suddenly felt on his lips the taste of that signature ice cream from the Crystal Cafe. Sweet, slightly artificial, but such a familiar taste that took him back 20 years to that sunny day in Kharkiv's Shevchenko garden. Memory is a strange thing. It can keep silent for years and then suddenly produce such a vivid picture that it seems to be happening here and now. There he is, 20-year-old Arkadiy, a third-year student at the Kharkiv Art and Industry Institute, walking through the spring alleys of the park with his friends. The sun plays in the young foliage, birds sing somewhere, the air smells of bird cherry and something intangibly spring-like that can only be felt at 20. Skipping classes was then almost a mandatory element of student life.
Not because they didn't want to study, simply because spring was doing its job. And sitting in a stuffy auditorium listening to a lecture on industrial design seemed a crime against nature, especially when the weather outside was so fine, when you wanted to live, love, commit follies. Look, girls coming! Vitya Petrenko, a tall redhead with freckles like hemp in a field, was the first to notice 3 girls walking toward them along the alley. Arkadiy raised his eyes from his sketchbook, his faithful notebook for sketches, in which he was drawing something on the go. He had such a habit, always sketching something, and saw them. 3 friends, obviously students, about 19 or 20 years old. One, a blonde with a short haircut. The second, a brunette with a long braid. And the third was Angelina, though he didn't know her name then. Light brown hair, gathered in a ponytail, gray eyes, and something in her gait, in the way she carried herself, that made his heart beat faster. Not a beauty in the classical sense, but there was some special attractiveness about her, intelligence that shone in her eyes, a sense of self-worth, a slight irony in her smile. "Let's go introduce ourselves," suggested Seryoga Volkov, the boldest of their company, the one who never missed a chance to approach girls. "And what will we say?" doubted Tolik Sidorov, the bespectacled straight-A student who feared girls like fire. "We'll think of something." Seryoga waved him off. "The main thing is to start a conversation." But starting a conversation wasn't necessary. The girls themselves stopped near them, by the fountain, which back then was still working and merrily splashing in the middle of a flower bed with tulips. The blonde noticed something in Arkadiy's notebook and became interested. "Oh, are you an artist?" she asked, and there was genuine interest in her voice. "A student at the Art and Industry Institute," answered Arkadiy, feeling himself blush. "I draw things." "Show us," requested the one with the braid, and they all crowded around the sketchbook. Arkadiy flipped through the pages, showing sketches. People in the park, trees, architectural details, random passersby, and suddenly realized that Angelina, he didn't know her name yet, but already thought of her as the one, was looking not at the drawings, but at him. Looking intently, studiously, and in her gaze was something warm, interested. "Let's go to the cafe," Vitya unexpectedly suggested. "We'll eat ice cream." The proposition hung in the air. The girls exchanged glances, clearly consulting silently, and the blonde replied, "Why not? But not far. We have a lecture in an hour." The Crystal Cafe was one of the city's iconic gastronomic spots. Beautiful name, modest interior, waitresses in white aprons, and most importantly, ice cream at affordable prices. For students, it was the ideal meeting place. They settled at a table by the window. The sun illuminated the girls' faces, and Arkadiy couldn't tear his gaze from Angelina. She wore a simple blue dress, without any jewelry, but there was something about her that made you forget everything else. "My name is Lena," introduced herself the blonde. "And this is Tanya,
She nodded to the brunette. "And this is Angelina." Angelina. The name settled on his heart like music.
A beautiful name for a beautiful girl. Though, no, not just beautiful. Special. And we are Arkadiy, Vitya, Seryoja, and Tolya, he introduced for everyone. Students of the Art Institute, clarified Angelina, and in her voice was a slight mockery. Skipping lectures? And are you straight-A students? Parried Seryoga. We're from the medical school, said Tanya. Also skipping, to be honest. Anatomy today, and the weather outside is so nice. The waitress brought their order. 7 portions of ice cream in flat, nickel-plated dessert bowls. The legendary squirrel ice cream. Cream, nuts, and chocolate sauce. It was incredibly delicious. Maybe because it was eaten in good company. Maybe because youth makes everything tastier. The conversation started on its own. It turned out they had a lot in common. Everyone loved cinema, especially French and American films, which were then beginning to be shown in theaters. Everyone read Hemingway and Remarque. Everyone dreamed of traveling, of seeing the world. Angelina talked about medical school, about how difficult it was to study anatomy, about her dream of becoming a doctor.
In her voice was such seriousness, such conviction, that Arkadiy understood. This wasn't a childish dream, but a true calling. "Why medicine?" he asked. "I want to help people," she answered simply. "To heal, to alleviate pain. It seems to me that's the most important thing in life, knowing how to help." And at that moment, something clicked in Arkadiy's heart. Not just infatuation, not just attraction, but something deeper, more serious. The understanding that here she was, the very one with whom he wanted to spend his entire life. Vitya told jokes. Sergio made plans for the weekend. Tolik was shy and blushed every time Lena addressed him. And Arkadiy listened to Angelina's voice and thought that he had never met a girl who was simultaneously so beautiful and so intelligent, so serious and so cheerful. She laughed at Vitya's jokes, but not stupidly, somehow understandingly. She asked questions about their studies, about drawing, about what they planned to become.
And when Arkadiy talked about his plans to become an industrial designer, to create beautiful and functional things, she listened attentively, without interrupting, and he felt that she was truly interested, not just politely maintaining the conversation. Time flew unnoticed. The ice cream had long been eaten. The waitress had approached their table twice, hinting it wouldn't be bad to order something else or free up the space. But they were so good together that they didn't want to part. "We really must go," Lena finally said, looking at her watch. "Lecture in half an hour, and we still have to get there." "Let's meet again," Arkadiy quickly said, not giving himself time to doubt. "Tomorrow, for example, or the day after." The girls exchanged glances again, and Angelina smiled. "Why not? Just not at the cafe. We don't have enough money for ice cream every day." "We can meet in the park," he suggested. "Just walk, talk." "Okay," she agreed. "Tomorrow at 7 in the evening by the fountain?" "Definitely." They escorted the girls to the trolley bus stop. Angelina sat by the window, and when it started moving, she waved to them. Arkadiy stood on the sidewalk and watched as the blue and white trolley bus number 12 receded, carrying away the most beautiful girl in the world. "You've fallen in love," laughed Vitya. "Fallen in love right before our eyes." "Is it that obvious?" asked Arkadiy, and was himself surprised at how happy his voice sounded. "Obvious, obvious," his friends chimed in chorus. "As obvious as an elephant." But Arkadiy didn't care. He was in love, and it was the most wonderful feeling in the world. Meetings with Angelina became regular. First, they met as a whole group, then just the 3 of them, Him, her, and one of their friends or girlfriends for propriety's sake. And then they began to meet just the two of them, and that was already serious. He got to know her gradually, day by day, meeting after meeting. Learned that she was from a small town near Poltava, that her parents were teachers, that she was the eldest of 3 children, that she loved to read before sleep, that she couldn't stand lies, that she dreamed of specializing in dermatology because she believed that skin diseases often make people unhappy, and she wanted to restore their confidence. They walked around Kharkiv for hours, along Sumskaya Street, where there were always many people and street musicians played.
Along the Lopan embankment, where you could sit on a bench and feed the ducks. Through the old city, where each house told its own story. Sometimes they went to the movies. Tickets cost 5 hryvnias, and for students, this was quite affordable. They watched Gladiator, Night Watch, The Lord of the Rings. They sat in the dark hall, and he would furtively look at her profile, illuminated by the screen, and think about how he wanted to sit next to her for his whole life, in cinemas, theaters, at home in front of the television. She turned out to be an amazing girl, serious when she needed to be serious, and cheerful when she could relax. Intelligent. You could talk to her about anything in the world. Kind. She fed stray kittens near the institute and always found time to help classmates with their studies. And beautiful. Not glaringly beautiful. Not in a way that made all men on the street turn around. But beautiful with a special beauty that revealed itself gradually, like a flower. Beautiful for him, for Arkadiy. And that was enough. The first kiss happened a month after they met.
They were walking in Gorky Park. It was a warm May evening. Lilacs were in bloom. She was saying something about a lecture on therapy, and he was listening not to the words, but to her voice, looking not at her gestures, but at her lips. And suddenly she stopped mid-sentence and looked at him. "You're not listening to me at all." "I am," he lied. "No, you're not. What was I talking about?" He honestly tried to remember, but in his head was emptiness. "I don't remember," he admitted. "And what were you thinking about?" "About you." She blushed, but didn't turn away. On the contrary, she took a step closer. "And what exactly about me were you thinking?" "That you're the most beautiful girl in the world, and that I want to kiss you." "Why don't you?" That's when he kissed her. There, under the blooming lilacs, under the stars, under the gaze of random passers-by. Kissed gently, carefully, as one kisses a first and only love for the first time. And she returned the kiss, and it was the happiest moment in his life. Then there were other kisses, other meetings, other walks, studies at their institutes, which they somehow managed to combine with romance. Meeting the parents, first hers, then his. Conversations about the future, plans, dreams. She graduated from medical school with honors and began working as a dermatologist in the city hospital. He defended his industrial design degree and got a job at a firm. They married in a simple district registry office, without lavish ceremonies, but with enormous love. And all this began with that day in Shevchenko Garden, with ice cream at the Crystal Cafe, with the first meeting when he didn't yet know he had met his destiny. Now, 20 years later, sitting in a German apartment alone, he felt that taste of ice cream on his lips and realized that first love was still in his heart. How long ago it was, and how fresh in memory. 31. War can destroy homes, force people to flee their native places, change an entire life. But it cannot destroy love, cannot take away memories of that happy time when they were young, when the whole world lay at their feet,
when ice cream for 2 hryvnias seemed a feast. And as long as he remembers that taste, as long as he remembers her laughter in the Crystal Cafe, as long as he remembers the first kiss under the lilacs, he is home, wherever he may be.